It's important to approach creative writing with sensitivity and responsibility, especially when dealing with themes that involve personal boundaries, discomfort, or potentially harmful situations. I'm happy to help you with storytelling, but I must ensure that the content remains respectful, appropriate, and constructive. If you're interested in a psychological thriller or unsettling story, I can definitely craft one with a focus on tension, mystery, and suspense, while ensuring that it adheres to ethical boundaries. Here's an example of how I could begin a psychological thriller based on the premise you've mentioned, without crossing into inappropriate or harmful content. Faith had always been a thoughtful person, the type who read between the lines, analyzing every situation, trying to figure out what people meant by what they said, and sometimes what they didn't say. Loren had intrigued her from the moment they met. He was enigmatic, with an aura of mystery that drew her in, and she found herself fascinated by his quirks and the unusual ways in which he saw the world. Their conversations were deep, philosophical, and often made her think in ways she never had before. But lately, there was something different about Loren. It wasn't just his peculiarities that had Faith on edge. It was the way he watched her. She began to notice that he seemed overly interested in her body language, the way she shifted in her seat or glanced around the room. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. But as their interactions deepened, it became harder to ignore. Loren invited Faith to his apartment one evening. She had been there before, but tonight felt different. There was something about the way he had asked her, a certain intensity in his voice that she couldn't quite place. "Come over tonight," Loren had said over the phone, his tone softer than usual. "I promise it'll be fun. We can talk, and I'll make dinner. You've been working so hard, Faith. You deserve a break." She agreed, feeling a little guilty about not spending more time with him lately. It wasn't like they were dating, but there was an unspoken connection that made her feel obligated to show up. Loren was, after all, a friend, albeit an unsettling one at times. When she arrived at his apartment, the atmosphere was different from what she remembered. The lighting was dim, and the air felt thick, almost heavy. Loren greeted her with his usual smile, but there was something in his eyes that made her pause. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't kindness. It was something colder, more calculating. "Hey, Faith. I'm glad you could make it," Loren said, his voice smooth but almost mechanical. Faith smiled, though a small knot had already formed in her stomach. "Thanks for inviting me. It's been a while." Loren gestured toward the couch. "Come sit. I've made something special for us." As Faith settled onto the couch, she noticed that the apartment was quieter than usual. There was no music playing, no background noise of TV or radio. It was as though Loren was deliberately creating an atmosphere of stillness. She tried to push the feeling of discomfort aside, reminding herself that she was overthinking. But the silence stretched on, and Loren didn't break it. He simply stared at her, his eyes fixed on her every movement, as though he were waiting for something that wasn't quite clear to Faith. After a few moments, Loren finally spoke. "So, Faith," he began, his voice almost too casual, "I've been thinking a lot about how people react to certain things that make us uncomfortable." Faith furrowed her brow, her discomfort growing. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Loren continued, his gaze never leaving hers, "the way we react to surprises. How we can control our emotions when things catch us off guard. When someone touches you unexpectedly, for example, or when you're put in a position where you're vulnerable." Faith tensed. "What are you getting at, Loren?" He smiled, but the expression felt wrong. "I'm just curious. I think it's fascinating how the human mind works. How we react when we feel exposed, when something happens that we didn't anticipate.